Blood diamonds, or conflict diamonds, are gems that are mined in areas where violence is common and the proceeds help fund warlords. But did you know that conflict minerals can be found in our cell phones and computers? The Securities and Exchange Commission in the States has rules in place to address this problem. Nelson Switzer is the Director and Leader of Sustainable Business Solutions with PwC Canada. So, Nelson Switzer, what are these conflict minerals?
Well, that's a good question. Conflict minerals are tin, tungsten, tantalum, or gold, also referred to as 3TG. And they are those minerals that are mined in conditions of armed conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo and surrounding countries. It's specifically defined by the SEC's Rule 1502 under Dodd-Frank Act.
Let me ask you a question. Let's take a commodity like tin. And let's say I'm a broker in the Netherlands and I'm amassing a ton of tin to sell on the open market. How would I know as a buyer what percentage of the tin in that amassed amount, because it's a commodity just like salt is going to be tainted and others that is mined from untainted zones? How could I possibly know that? Tin is tin. It's a series of molecules that look identical. How do I know what the difference is?
It's a great question, and that's the challenge that businesses are facing. The complexity of this issue is, I think, front and center, and what it is that companies have to be paying attention to. You have to be able to map your supply chain from the point of which you're representing, and in your case, you're talking about as that commodities broker. You need to be able to go back along your supply chain and get certification from the various players. If you look at it from the miner, you have to go from the mine to the refiner or the smelter, in the case of tin, down through your supply chain. It takes considerable effort, but it also depends on where that mineral is coming from.
But we were talking about the fact that it's in a lot of consumer products, like consumers and cell phones.
Yes.
I mean, do we know, like, what percentage of our computers and cell phones that are in use in Canada right now might have these conflict minerals in them?
That's what people are looking to find now. There are a number of companies who have already started this process to break down their supply chain, to undertake this inventory going through their supply chain, starting with those component suppliers, and then from them to the manufacturers and down again all the way to the smelters. And the notion really is, how can they break that down, take an inventory, and be able to tick those boxes that say this is conflict-free, or perhaps identifying something that is questionable. So then they can undertake perhaps an internal audit or undertake this due diligence, which will allow them to identify the risks that are represented in their supply chain.
Now, I understand the moral issues at play here, and I actually agree with them. But let me tell you the unintended consequences as an investor. I look at this. Let's say one economy, let's say we burden the Canadian economy with this cost, as you've identified, of actually accrediting your supply chain, whatever that cost is. And then let's say a competitor to me that is in France or in Switzerland or Germany isn't burdened with the same regulation. That's not a level playing field. That's not fair.
Well, you know, whether it's fair or not is really not the issue that I spend most of my time on, or our time here at PwC. What we do is we help our clients understand what the issue is and how it is they can best manage that issue. And there are a lot of clients who have who've raised that, industry associations as well, who've brought this issue up and said, you know, is this really fair? Unfortunately, it's not an issue of fairness. It's a matter of the regulatory requirement.
So do you see this becoming sort of a branding issue? I'm thinking about, you know, coffee, fair trade coffee has become quite common, quite popular. Do you think this is going to happen in terms of cell phones, computers, jewelry, all these different items that do have these products in them?
I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that question, really accurately. But what I can say, or what I think, is that there are going to be companies who recognize that there is a potential brand implication for them, either an opportunity or a risk. A lot of people like to be first out of the gate with innovative technologies, innovative solutions, brands, and concepts. But there's also risk in that. There's a great expression that I heard once that said, first to be second. You know, I'd love to be first to be second. Once somebody else has stumbled and made all the mistakes, we can learn from those lessons. So perhaps that will happen. But I do think there's an opportunity for those companies that come out. Cell phones, the automobile. Who's going to be the first one to produce the conflict-free car? I think that'll be quite fascinating. And is there a market for it?
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for telling us more about it.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up after the break, in some bars,